It's a great day to be in real estate. This is Duanebeisner, sales manager and sales representative for ERA Real Estate. For my quote of the day, when a proud man hears another praised, he feels himself injured, which is an English proverb. And for my joke of the day, there are three buddies that die in a car crash and they find themselves at the pearly gates. And they're all asked, when you are in your casket and your friends and family are mourning upon you, what would you most like to hear them say about you? The first guy says, I'd like to hear them say that I was the greatest doctor of my time and a great family man. Second guy says, I would like to hear that I was a wonderful husband and school teacher who made a big difference in our children of tomorrow. The last guy replies, I would like to hear them say, look, he's moving. And for the business tip of the day, there's a time for work, a time for play, and a time for reflection. Make sure you have all three in balance. Think about it. For my social commentary, I found it interesting that another brand that's been sort of a American institution has bitten the dust. Ford is discontinuing Mercury production. Ford Company will cease production of its 72-year-old Mercury brand by the end of 2010 after years of declining sales. By the way, this was from the Associated Press. Mercury's death is the latest in a string of casualties as Detroit car makers try to cut costs and invest more heavily in fewer offerings. By shedding a mid-range brand that was more and more irrelevant to buyers, the automaker can focus on accelerating sales of Ford and beefing up its luxury Lincoln brand. Ford shares rose nearly 4% after the announcement to close at $11.85. The story is a familiar one in Detroit. General Motors Company recently shed the Saab, Saturn, Pontiac, and Hummer brands. In 2004, GM spent more than $1 billion to kill Oldsmobile brand. Chrysler Group LLC dumped its Plymouth brand in 2001 after sales declines similar to Mercury's. Mercury got its start, for those of you who don't know, in 1935 when Henry Ford's son, Edsel Ford, began designing a more upscale car he planned to call the Ford Falcon. But he didn't think it would fit in with the brand's other offerings, so he created a new brand that was named for the winged Roman god. The first Mercury, the 1939 Mercury 8, went into production in 1938 and it sold for $916 and boasted a 95 horsepower V8 engine. More than 65,000 were sold that first year. Mercury sales peaked in 1978 at more than 580,000 vehicles. Last year, just over 92,000 Mercurys were sold. So, with that, let's go into the real estate news. Remember yesterday I told you part one of the real estate disclosures. Sellers, if you don't tell the buyer everything, your neighbor will. This is part two. So one of the tips is tell your buyer everything you know about the house, especially if you are the typical DIY or do-it-yourself type of guy or gal. The rule is simple. If in doubt, disclose it. A disclosure should be written in a clear and specific way. For instance, in 1997, there was a leak underneath the kitchen. We called ABC Plumbing, and they fixed it. Or, around 2002, during El Nino rains, the basement flooded. A sump pump was installed by a plumber. Next tip, if you did not take permits for any additions or structural modifications you made to the house, disclose that very clearly. These types of additions or modifications without permits is what puts the new occupants of the house at risk if they do not know. Next tip, we always suggest to our sellers and clients to order a home and a pest control inspection before we put the house on the market. These reports provided to the buyer do not only offer a professional opinion, but also act as additional disclosures that you, the seller, provided to the buyer. Next tip, when it comes to disclosing neighborhood noise problems or other nuisances, don't be shy. If you don't disclose that the area has problems with airport noises or garbage odors from a nearby dump, for example, not only would the new owner of the house be able to find out within a few days of moving in, your friendly neighbors will spill the beans as soon as they greet the new owners with a courtesy visit to welcome them into the area. Next tip, always make sure that you get a copy of your disclosure signed and dated by the buyers before escrow closes. These signed documents are your protection against future liability, and it is hard to get signatures after the deal is closed and everybody's lost their motivation. Buyers do not like to be surprised by material facts they did not know. In our office, every transaction has at the end of the file about at least 30 different documents of disclosures. The files are at least an inch to an inch and a half thick, on average. One realtor was told of having to accompany one of his clients, a home seller, to a lawsuit regarding the answers he gave to the questions in the disclosures that read, quote unquote, "Are you aware of any problems with the house before or during your ownership?" He answered no. The key word here was before. The previous owners had disclosed to him that the house had had a problem with the foundation when it was being built 35 years before. The result of that problem was that the foundation was reinforced better than any other home in the area, and neither the previous owner nor that client had ever had a problem while they had lived there. The buyer, however, sued him for non-disclosure. After 2 years of depositions, thousands of dollars in attorney's fees, and countless sleepless nights, the arbitrator awarded the buyers $120,000, which they proceeded to use to upgrade the entire house, because there was nothing wrong with the foundation. The legal fees for both parties were paid by the home seller. But how did the new owner know? The neighbor across the street came to greet the new owners, and as they unloaded their belongings, she told them the history of the house and how the foundation gave way and how it was fixed. The new buyers felt they should have been told, consulting an attorney who was glad to take the case and make some money from the seller. As you can see, you don't necessarily have to do anything wrong. All you have to do to get into legal trouble is not pay attention when filling out the real estate transfer disclosure statements. If you're in the middle of a transaction and escrow has not closed, go back and do an amended document if you found out that you missed anything. Even if you have to renegotiate something with the buyer, it's a lot cheaper than facing him in court. Good luck. This is Duane signing off. Happy trails to you. As always, proud to be in America. Make sure you visit my website, www.rejedi.com. Thank you for listening.